They called us the golden couple of Harmony Edge. Industry parties, cover stories, keynote speeches. Lucas was always center stage, and I stood beside him, polished and poised. I wasn't just the CEO's wife. I was the woman who kept his world running, managing events, ironing his public image, smiling through the gloss. People assumed I lived in some dreamscape. I let them. No one saw the gaps. No one questioned the lonely flights or the time-stamped texts arriving at midnight. I should have asked more questions. But when the world sees your life as perfect, you begin pretending right along with them. Lucas thrived in rooms full of applause. His voice held authority, his smile, strategy. People clung to every word like scripture. At home, he was different, always buried in his phone, taking late-night calls with Japan. Our pillow talk had become quarterly reports. Our dinners turned into PR briefings. I remember asking him once, "Do you even see me anymore?" He kissed my forehead and said, "I see everything, love." I believed him, foolishly, because believing meant stability. And I'd spent so long making sure his chaos didn't spill into our perfect little illusion. It was a Tuesday morning, normal, uneventful, until I saw the message. Lucas had left his tablet unlocked in the kitchen, and a preview banner lit up the screen. Just 3 lines. "Last night was unreal. I'm still shaking. When can we escape again?" My heart paused. I blinked, unsure if I'd imagined it. But the message didn't disappear. It was real. No name, no photo, just raw intent. I didn't touch it. I simply walked away. There's a difference between being blind and choosing blindness. That morning, I chose the latter. But the seed was planted. And it would grow. I started noticing things. His cologne changing, his sudden interest in meditation retreats, the way he locked his phone like it held state secrets. There were holes in his travel itinerary. He once claimed he was in Zurich for a keynote, but I'd seen the live stream. He wasn't there. He smiled when he lied, the same way he did on magazine covers. I started cross-referencing his calendar with public events. Sometimes he wasn't where he said he'd be. Sometimes he was with people who never made it onto the press release. And one name kept coming up again and again. Ava. Ava Hart. Young. Blonde. Brilliant. The newest head of strategic partnerships. She'd risen faster than anyone in Harmony Edge history. People whispered about her behind lanyards and wine glasses. I'd seen her once at an awards gala, tall, teeth like polished porcelain, dress slit far past tasteful. She floated across the room like she belonged to someone powerful. Maybe she already did. Lucas introduced me to her briefly, his hand barely brushing my back as he said, "My wife, Elise." Her eyes locked on me, unreadable. Then she smiled. And that smile held something I couldn't quite place. Something like pity. I told myself I was imagining it. That I was being paranoid. That women like me, calm, educated, mature, don't spiral over flirty texts and younger women with influencer faces. But it lingered. The doubt. The ache. One evening, Lucas came home late again, and I asked casually, "How's Ava?" His eyes flickered. Just for a second. "She's sharp," he said. "Big future ahead." Then he changed the subject. But I caught the slip. He hadn't said, "She's doing well." He said, "Sharp." Like a blade. Like something you want to keep close, even if it cuts. That night, I couldn't sleep. I began researching. Quietly. Carefully. Her LinkedIn said she was based in London. His schedule had him in New York. Yet their Instagram stories, deleted within hours, showed the same wine bar, same lighting, same timestamp. Harmony Edge hosted a private summit in Tuscany. He told me spouses weren't invited. I smiled and kissed his cheek goodbye. But Ava's reflection was in one of the summit's leaked videos, sitting beside him, laughing over espresso. That's when I stopped pretending. Whatever was happening, it wasn't just business. And whatever he'd built, I was going to watch it fall apart piece by piece. It wasn't about Ava. Not really. It was about being made small. About being erased in a world I helped him conquer. Lucas didn't just cheat on me. He rewrote the narrative, cast me as irrelevant. I wasn't going to cry in the background. I wasn't going to quietly fade while the world kept calling us perfect. I had resources. I had reach. And most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. I called a private investigator. Gave him everything: travel dates, aliases, the company card logs. I need receipts, I told him. I want proof so loud no one can deny it. He looked at me across the table, quiet but curious. Are you sure you want the truth? He asked. Because once you have it, everything changes. I nodded. I already know the truth. I just need everyone else to. He handed me a burner phone, promised to work fast. As he left, I sat in our glass-walled kitchen, marble countertops, curated orchids, everything designed to impress. It all felt fake. And maybe it had been for a long time. But I was done playing support. Done standing quietly while he spun the spotlight. From here on out, the script was mine. A few days later, Lucas came home with roses. For surviving another board meeting, he smiled. I took them, smiled back, and made us tea. As he talked about stock options and partnerships, I studied him like a stranger. This man, so beloved by the public, had no idea the countdown had started. His secrets were about to become headlines. His kingdom, built on image and charm, was seconds from rupture. He had no clue I was the one holding the match. And once I lit it, I wouldn't stop until everything he valued turned to ash. I didn't sleep the night of the announcement. He was still out when the story dropped, some sanitized version of it anyway. Coldplay's CEO to collaborate with rising starlet Ivy Vale, the headlines read. I stared at the glowing screen of my phone. The photo of them mid-laugh splashed across every article like a wedding announcement. I sat in the dark living room, numb, while the kettle hissed behind me, forgotten like I had been. When the door finally opened at 3 a.m., I watched him walk in like a man returning from battle. No apology, just a casual, "Did you see it? We're going global, babe." He was talking about the campaign, the Coldplay x Ivy Vale Global Initiative, like it was some benevolent humanitarian mission. It's more than just brand synergy, he said, tossing his blazer on the armchair. We're shaping culture. This is history. I didn't respond. I only nodded, like a dutiful investor watching the stock tank while being told to trust the market. When I asked why I hadn't been told earlier, he blinked at me, genuinely confused. It's just business, he said, pouring himself a glass of wine. Why are you acting like I cheated on you? I didn't answer that either, mostly because my voice felt like gravel in my throat, but also because, deep down, I already knew. That campaign wasn't about strategy, it was about seduction. About playing house with a younger, shinier model while I sat here, still married to the ghost of the man I built from the ground up. I watched him sip his drink like a king admiring his empire, and something cold cracked open in my chest. I didn't know what I would do yet, but I knew one thing for sure: I wouldn't be crying in corners this time. The next morning, the PR machine kicked into high gear. News outlets flooded with photos of Ivy and Christian laughing at some launch event in Barcelona. I knew that laugh. I'd heard it every time I cracked a stupid joke to keep him grounded during Coldplay's chaotic early days. But now it was hers, bought and bottled for headlines. I couldn't look away. The headlines weren't scandalous yet, just flirtatious. But I knew where it was going. And I wasn't about to wait until the tabloids caught up. I called his assistant Mia, a bright-eyed 24-year-old who once asked me if I was in HR when we first met. She stammered when I asked about Christian's travel schedule. He's flying to LA next week. Campaign filming. I asked her to send me the itinerary. She hesitated. I'll check with him first. I ended the call. I didn't need his assistant's permission to find out what my husband was doing with his co-star. I already knew. What I wanted now was proof. Not for the tabloids. Not for the lawyers. For me. So I could finally burn the illusion. I hired a PI that afternoon. A woman. Sharp. Discreet. She didn't ask many questions. Just took the check and said, "I'll get what you need." 2 days later, I had surveillance photos of my husband in a Beverly Hills hotel suite, shirtless, barefoot, leaning against Ivy's door like a man on a honeymoon. I stared at the photo for a long time, not because I was shocked, but because it was somehow worse than I imagined. Not just infidelity, but intimacy, comfort, familiarity, the kind you don't fake in a weekend. My hands didn't even shake when I saved the file. When he came back, he kissed me on the forehead. I let him sit at our dinner table and ramble about production timelines and costume fittings. I even asked polite questions like some PR exec playing nice with the press. And then, while he was in the shower, I opened his laptop. It was all there. Emails to Ivy. Dozens of them. Not just love notes. Strategy. Spin. Damage control. They weren't just lovers. They were building an empire behind my back. I read every line. I memorized the patterns. And I realized something. He didn't fall in love with her. He was trying to replace me. The next morning, I scheduled a breakfast meeting with the Coldplay board's ethics advisor. Over croissants and coffee, I asked one question: would a scandal involving the CEO's personal and professional misconduct threaten the company's IPO? The silence was deafening. She asked me to clarify. I didn't. I just smiled and slid a manila envelope across the table. It didn't even take 24 hours. By the next morning, everything I had handed over was all over the internet. Ivy Vale's name was trending alongside my husband's, wrapped in hashtags like #ColdplayAffair and #ValeGate. The board's ethics advisor hadn't said a word during our breakfast. But someone in that building pulled the trigger, and the whole house caught fire. Photos, emails, the itinerary from the charity shoot in LA. It all leaked, surgically, perfectly, like someone had rehearsed it. If I had to guess, the company had a contingency plan for this. But nothing could have prepared them for the way the public devoured it. Within hours, Ivy's PR team issued a statement. Miss Vale denies any wrongdoing or impropriety. She remains focused on her craft and supporting global equity. The comments were merciless. People called her everything from career homewrecker to delusional. But she wasn't the real target. Christian was. Coldplay's shiny, curated image of leadership and integrity shattered overnight. A man who built his brand on loyalty and innovation was suddenly exposed as another cliché, a middle-aged executive sleeping with the product. The fallout was volcanic. And I didn't even have to lift a finger. I just watched. Christian called me 5 times that morning. I didn't answer. I sat by the window, sipping coffee while the stock alerts pinged my phone. Coldplay's valuation was hemorrhaging. Journalists camped outside our house. My lawyer told me I didn't have to speak to anyone. I could just stay quiet and watch it all burn. But silence wasn't my plan. I'd already done my time being invisible. If he wanted a show, I'd give the world a damn opera. So I called The Guardian. The reporter sounded stunned when I told him who I was. I just want my truth on record, I said. Not a pity piece. Just facts. He agreed. I told him about the emails, the lies, the timeline. I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I gave him the precise moments Christian stopped being a husband and started being a brand. He used me to build the company's moral foundation, I said. Then when it was time to sell it to the world, he swapped me out for a younger model. That's not business. That's betrayal. The article dropped the next morning with the headline, I was the face behind the curtain. Coldplay CEO's wife breaks silence. It went viral before breakfast. Thousands of retweets. Hundreds of thousands of comments. Some women called me a hero. Others warned me that powerful men always land on their feet. Maybe they were right. But right now, he wasn't landing. He was falling. By noon, Christian's team released a painfully bland statement. While I deeply regret the distraction recent headlines have caused, I remain committed to Coldplay's values and mission. It read like ChatGPT wrote it. No apology to me. No acknowledgement of Ivy. Just brand maintenance. But the damage was done. The board called an emergency meeting. Investors fled. Sponsors pulled out of the campaign launch. Ivy's skincare deal vanished overnight. And then the email leaked. An internal message from Christian to Ivy. If this goes public, she'll bury us both. That was the moment the world turned. It wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was a story. And the internet loves a good villain. They memed the line within minutes. T-shirts, TikToks, reaction videos. Christian's face edited onto sinking ships. Ivy turned into a running joke on late-night shows. And me. I became something I never asked to be, believed. He showed up at the house that night. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. No security. No driver. Just him, standing at the front door in the rain like the ghost of the man I married. I didn't say anything when I opened the door. I just stepped aside. He walked in slowly, dripping water onto the floor like some tragic cliché. Why would you do this? He asked, voice hoarse. Why didn't you come to me first? I laughed. Not out of humor. Out of disbelief. I did, Christian. 4 months. You were just too busy *king the future to notice the present. He tried to explain, as if there was a sentence in the world that would make any of this make sense. It wasn't personal, he said. It was strategic. I looked at him and realized he genuinely believed that. That swapping his wife for a pop star was just another quarterly pivot. A product launch. A press cycle. You didn't just cheat on me, I said. You cheated on the life I gave up to build with you. He tried to cry. I didn't care. I told him the board would likely ask for his resignation before the quarter ended. He said he could fix it. I told him no one wants a CEO who can't manage his zipper. Then I handed him the envelope from my lawyer. I won't drag your name through the courts, I said. But I'm walking away with everything I deserve. He didn't argue. For the first time, he looked like he understood. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. The lawyers moved fast. Christian's board assembled a reputation crisis firm within 48 hours. His assistant, who used to send me flowers on my birthday, now forwarded cease and desist letters. Coldplay filed a vague internal memo calling the press a coordinated smear campaign and warned employees against speaking to the media. Ivy deleted every photo from her Instagram, even the one where she wore my necklace. Yes, that one. Suddenly, everyone wanted silence. Too bad they forgot the golden rule. Once a lie becomes public, the truth doesn't whisper, it screams. I hadn't planned to say anything else. But then came the email from an anonymous Coldplay employee. Subject line, "He's done this before." Inside were screenshots of other women. Names. Messages. One was a former intern. Another, a junior marketing exec who resigned mysteriously last year. Christian hadn't just cheated. He'd prayed. Over and over. And Coldplay protected him. The PR team had tried to kill the story, offering settlements, NDAs, and even fake job offers to keep the women quiet. It wasn't a scandal anymore. It was systemic rot. I stared at the screen for nearly an hour before I called my lawyer. "Send it to the press," I said. Every single word. That was the moment things truly exploded. Suddenly, I wasn't just a betrayed wife, I was a whistleblower. The Guardian ran a follow-up. Coldplay CEO faces new allegations. Culture of silence exposed. It included anonymous testimonies, redacted screenshots, and a timeline that painted Christian not as unlucky, but as calculated. Reddit lit up. Twitter turned into a battlefield. People who once idolized him now called for his head. Ivy's fanbase tried to pivot to damage control, claiming she wasn't aware of his pattern, that she was just another victim. But the internet didn't buy it. The same week she posted a healing through music video, a second email leaked. "Can you make sure she's not pregnant?" That would be a PR nightmare. Christian's mask cracked. He launched a counterattack, subtly at first. He sent private messages to mutual friends, saying I was vindictive and emotionally unstable. Claimed I was trying to ruin him out of spite. He tried painting himself as a man under siege. But people didn't buy the victim act from a man with a $70 million house and a fleet of Teslas. Especially not when he was begging Ivy to lay low until the board settles. He miscalculated again, because people started reaching out to me. Former nannies, a former tour videographer, even a retired VP who'd been quietly paid off to resign 2 years ago. Every single one had a piece of the puzzle. Some were small, like how Christian used company funds to fly Ivy to Paris for brand alignment. Others were massive, like how a potential buyout deal fell through when Ivy drunkenly told an investor they were running the company together now. And then came the breaking point, the video. A 2-minute clip filmed by an audio engineer at an after-party last year. Christian, clearly drunk, grabbed Ivy and said on camera, "You don't have to worry, babe. She's just a prop. You're the future. She's just a prop." It hit me like a freight train. It wasn't even the words, it was the way he said them. So casual. So certain. Like I wasn't a person but a stage light. Replaceable. Functional. Forgotten when the curtain fell. The video spread like wildfire. #JustAProp trended for days. Women from all industries posted stories about being used, discarded, sidelined. What started as my story became a movement. The board couldn't ignore it anymore. They released a statement calling the video deeply troubling and launched an internal ethics investigation. Sponsors started demanding answers. Ivy's management dropped her within the week. And Christian, he issued a final press release that was more like a whimper. "I will be stepping back temporarily to allow space for reflection and accountability." It was over, or so I thought, because that night I got a call from a blocked number. I almost didn't pick up, but something in my gut told me to. I answered. Silence. Then breathing. Then, "You think you've won? You don't even know what you've started." It was Christian. I didn't flinch. "I know exactly what I started," I said. "And I'm just getting warmed up." He hung up. I stood by the window again that night. Same place where I used to wait for him to come home from long trips. Only now, I wasn't waiting. I was watching. The narrative wasn't his anymore. It was mine. And I had no intention of stopping. 3 weeks after the video leaked, Christian's resignation became official. The Coldplay board didn't just ask him to step down. They stripped him of voting rights, revoked his bonus stock options, and opened a third-party audit into executive misconduct. His face vanished from the company website overnight. It was as if he never existed. And Ivy. She released a 4-minute apology video. Tears, no makeup, the works. Claimed she was manipulated, that she wasn't aware of the full extent of his actions. But the comments section didn't buy it. You flew private on his wife's money. You posted his yacht while calling yourself self-made. You didn't look manipulated when you kissed him at the investor party. People saw through the mascara tears. So did I. Christian tried calling me again. Twice. Left voicemails that started as apologies and turned into veiled threats. He said I was destroying his life, his future, his name. You think you look strong? He spat in one message. You look bitter. No. I looked done. And finally, I felt free. What Christian didn't know was that I had been preparing my final move for months, long before the press even caught wind of Ivy. After his third late night out, after the 10th unexplained charge on our joint card, after the moment I found a receipt for a diamond bracelet I never received, I had quietly hired a financial forensics team. They combed through everything, his personal accounts, company reimbursements, private trusts. And they found it. A Cayman Islands shell company registered in Ivy's real name, funded by our joint investment property sales. I didn't need revenge. I needed leverage. So I waited. Waited until the world saw him for what he was. Waited until he thought I'd finally vanished from the scene like a good ex-wife. And then I sent one document, just one, to Coldplay's legal team. It showed Christian had funneled marital assets into offshore accounts using company resources. That broke 2 federal laws. And a clause in our prenup. The prenup Christian forced me to sign before marriage had one very specific line. In the event of financial fraud, all marital assets revert to the injured party. Guess who the injured party was? By the end of the quarter, Christian was out of the mansion, out of the company, and paying monthly penalties that made his eyes bleed. I got the house in Malibu. I got the vintage Aston Martin. I even got Ivy's old apartment, which I sold and donated the money to a non-profit for women in tech. That donation made headlines. So did the caption I left on Instagram. From mistress to memory. Ivy, meanwhile, disappeared from social media entirely. Rumor has it she fled to Thailand to spiritually heal. Christian was last seen trying to pitch a startup to investors who wouldn't take his calls. His once loyal board members ghosted him. Even his own brother, who once called me boring, released a statement distancing himself from Christian's actions. Poetic, really. The media called it one of the most spectacular downfalls in corporate history. But they always missed the point. This wasn't about a man who lost everything. It was about a woman who finally stopped handing him everything. I moved back to LA, took a consulting role helping startups build ethical cultures, and started a podcast, because apparently people wanted to hear my story in my own voice. Funny. I used to sit in the background at his events, nodding politely while people called him visionary. Now, people called me powerful, brave, unshakable. But I didn't need their validation. I had something better, the truth. My name. My silence broken. My future back in my own hands. One afternoon, as I walked through the Coldplay building to finalize one last legal form, a receptionist handed me a note. No envelope. Just folded once. It read, "You burned the house down." And underneath it, "Thank you." No name. Just a flicker of solidarity. I smiled. Sometimes, justice doesn't arrive in a courtroom. Sometimes, it's a fire lit with truth, carried by women who were once just props. Now we hold the pen. And this was just the first chapter.